Welcome to Your Daily Writing Habit, episode number 584. If you are writing a book or thinking about it, or maybe you've started writing your book but you're having trouble finishing it, or perhaps you're at the stage where you need help reaching more readers to let them know about your book, you are in the right place. Good morning, happy Monday. I'm your host, Christine Whitmarsh. If you're looking for me online, especially social media, look for Christine Inc. I-N-K, like that stuff we write with. Each day I'm sharing with you the writing habits I've learned over my 19 years as a ghostwriter, book coach, and author. I have found that three things in particular have a huge impact on your success as an author, and they have the ability to turn someone who barely considers themselves to be a writer into a published book author. Those three things are writing fundamentals, productivity, and mindset habits. Here's today's quote. Memoir isn't the summary of a life. It's a window into a life, very much like a photograph in its selective composition. It may look like a casual and even random calling up of bygone events. It's not. It's a deliberate construction. William Zinsser. And once again, good morning, happy Monday, continuing with what's been on my mind lately, and for this year, for 2020 more than ever, and also as reflected in our quote of the day, memoirs. And yes, that is my number one area. I mean, I help people write all books, but my number one area of expertise as a book coach and ghostwriter is definitely memoirs. And this year, finally publishing my own memoir, The Power of the Curve, has reinforced the great impact of this often overlooked genre of book. Also, really, as I mentioned with 2020, watching as the world quieted down this year, and yes, against our will, but I definitely saw how in these quiet moments, people began taking stock of their lives, their stories, and what they wanted to share with the world. I really believe the full potential of a memoir is really just being tapped. So the question I want to hit on today is, how do you know which stories to include in your memoir and which ones to leave out? And I have 3 bits of guidance around that. Number 1, as far as your rough draft is concerned, if you're working from a book blueprint, and I'll definitely pop some information in the show notes about what I'm talking about and how you can get my free guide to do that. It's just a very fancy and thorough way of developing your book, giving you just a really clear, strong foundation to work from. So if you're working from a blueprint or really any sort of outline, you probably already have an idea of which stories match your vision for your memoir before you start writing it. But even so, as you write, you might find yourself adding more stories than you planned. And you know what? Do it. Go for it. As the adage goes, you can't edit a blank page. It's better to have more stories and more words than you need, than you'll actually even keep. Then, once your draft takes shape, you'll be able to pinpoint which ones belong and which ones belong on the cutting room floor. So that's the first tip, is write the stories you think might even possibly be relevant to your memoir vision. Write them all. Put them all in there. Next, number 2, once you have that complete draft, return, when I say complete draft, like beginning to end of your book, pretty much how you think your book maybe should possibly end up. So it's that first complete draft of your book, always a very exciting moment. Once you have that, return to your book vision, the premise and arc of your memoir, and edit against it. Get super clear on those things so that when reviewing each story in your memoir, and when I say those things, I mean your premise, your vision, your arc, just the overall view of your memoir, that big picture. So get super clear on those so that when you're reviewing each story in your memoir with a critical eye, you can then ask, how does this story support my book's vision? And when crafting that question, be as specific as possible so you can curate as accurately as possible. For instance, when I was curating stories for my memoir, I asked, how does this story support my message of finding power in life's curves? So be as specific as possible. So that's the next step, is curate against the vision of your book. And finally, number 3, remember to save all the stories you cut as extra content. So you wrote all those stories that end up on the cutting room floor. They're not a waste. There's never such a thing as wasted content. You're going to use all of that later as magnets to your book during your marketing, during your launch. You're going to turn those stories into emails and blog posts and articles. on sites like Thrive Global and Medium and all these places where you can publish your work and create all this content that is all acting as magnets to draw people to your book. Social media content, video ideas, podcast episodes. No content is ever wasted. So all that stuff on the cutting room floor, hold on to it. Use it for content later to draw people to your book. And then it's super exciting. Say, these are exclusive stories that didn't make the book, and now you get to see them. Always an exciting thing. So those are my 3 guidelines today about how to know which stories to include in your memoir and which to leave out. Hopefully that's helpful. And thank you for joining me here on Your Daily Writing Habit, where I am helping you write and finish writing an awesome book. And be sure and drop by my Inc. Authors group on Facebook for motivation, accountability, book writing, publishing resources, and more. I will also drop the link to that in the show notes. Until tomorrow, happy writing.